Hey, how's it going, comic book fans? Welcome back to Comic Drops. I'm just sitting here reading the Sunday edition of Ice Cream Man Volume 1. Just look at this beautiful hardcover here. If you haven't picked up anything Ice Cream Man related yet, this is the perfect way to do so. It collects issues 1 through 12 of the series. But you didn't come here to talk about the Sunday edition of Ice Cream Man. You came here to discuss Ice Cream Man number 4. So let's take a look. Written by W. Maxwell Prince with art by Martin Morazzo and published by Image Comics, this issue is entitled Every Good Boy Does Fine and continues the series' trend of genre swapping with a story that's more darker, more unsettling, and more emotionally charged than ever before. So we follow a man named Joel as he navigates grief and complicated family dynamics after the death of his friend Chris, while also glimpsing the surreal and horrifying world Chris experiences after his death. Through haunting imagery and Rick's ever ominous presence, this issue explores many themes, like the fragility of memory, the seduction of escape, and how the subjective nature of the afterlife in this universe can sometimes be comforting and sometimes be nightmarish. We might even get some interesting details and world building in this issue concerning who or what Rick actually is. So, how does Rick torment this issue's characters? Stay tuned to find out. This issue opens with an idyllic scene with Joel and his wife discussing the death of a distant friend, Chris. I've never had to eulogize someone before, Joel admits, but his wife reassures him. Stop worrying, you'll do great. Joel then reveals something telling about their relationship. Chris and I hadn't talked in 2 years. I had no idea he was sick. What type of sickness did Chris have? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Joel not speaking to Chris for 2 years before his death is one of the most emotionally charged beats in Ice Cream Man number 4, because it crystallizes the story's theme of regret and emotional distance. At its heart, this silence is more than just a gap in communication. It's a wound both characters carry. For Joel, it represents avoidance. Maybe he felt resentment towards Chris, maybe shame, maybe a complicated mix of both. We don't really know yet. But the act of not picking up the phone becomes an invisible wall, one that grows taller the longer it stands. By the time Joel might have wanted to reconnect, the gap was so wide that taking the first step became almost unthinkable. She responds gently, Joel, listen. Life gets busy. People grow apart. It's just the way things go. Joel wishes she could accompany him to the funeral, but she's pregnant and doesn't want to travel. Try and enjoy a night away from home. You won't be getting many more once Pele here makes his arrival. Suddenly, an unfamiliar red narration box intrudes. What? Where am I? The moment is jarring. Joel's wife then takes his picture, telling him, handsome even in grief. Smile, honey. A strange choice of words for sure. Joel confides in her, though. I think his dad's coming. After all this time, 25 years. I'm not sure what I should say to him. She answers Joel. Joel, Chris was one of your best friends. The only thing you need to worry about is being there for him. Then, with a supportive smile, she says, now let's hear it from the top. The scene then cuts to Chris's funeral, where Joel begins his eulogy. Chris was a complicated guy. He was first and foremost a musical genius. He had this ear. Any song he heard, he could play back on the guitar or piano in seconds. It was amazing to watch. My best guess, Chris was a living, breathing piece of major scale composition. Joel then nervously glances at all the other mourners and continues. His laugh was like a good chorus or a jingle, but then sometimes he'd brood. With everyone's eyes still fixed on the coffin, he goes on. Like any genius, Chris was given to severe moods and bouts of self-deprecation that sucked the life right out of the room. We called these episodes his minor chords. Then, smiling down at the coffin, Joel recalls. But for all his complexity, there was also something about Chris that was profoundly simple. He loved it when the ice cream truck drove by. He'd hear the truck's music and immediately whistle it back, as if the song was somehow his, coming from inside him. That's how I'll remember Chris. Radiating music, licking on a giant cone of vanilla on the sidewalk. And then he ends simply with, "Rest in peace, buddy." I think it's interesting that we only know Chris's life through Joel's telling it. And Joel filters everything: the childhood stories, the musical metaphors, even Chris's personality through his own guilt, biases, and selective memory. That means we're never getting a pure, objective version of Chris. We're getting a remembered Chris, a constructed Chris. And as any memory fades, details blur, and the person becomes more of an idea than a reality. It also mirrors the way grief works in real life. When someone dies, the living cling to their memories. But those memories aren't static. They change every time we revisit them, often shaped as much by our emotional state as by the actual events. In this issue, Joel's narrative may be sincere, but it's fragile. But we'll talk more about that a bit later. The red narration box interrupts again with the words, "Wait." After the service, Joel speaks with Chris's father under a haunting red-orange sunset. Really lovely, Joel. Truly. I always said you had a way with words. Come here, brother. And Chris's father embraces him. Joel offers his condolences as well, and Chris's father replies, "You're lost too, Jojo. Thanks for that back there. With his mom passed and me being, well, me, I wasn't sure who it was that would speechify Chris properly. But of course it's you. It had to be." With a touch of loneliness, he also adds, "I'm a sad old putz with no friends in town. You want to grab a drink or something?" The next scene finds them at a bar, toasting to Chris. And again, a red narration box interrupts the panel with the words, "Hold on a second." Then Joel reveals, "So, Sheila's pregnant." And Chris's father is surprised. "What? Sheila? Little Sheila Decker? You two?" And Joel confirms it. "Yep, 10 years this February." They chat until Joel abruptly asks, "Why'd you leave?" The question stuns Chris's father, and we learn he abandoned his family when Chris was young. Joel chillingly admits, "I've been considering it. Leaving," he explains. "It's like my life keeps chugging along without consulting me, without asking if I want to come along for the ride. And I keep thinking about what you did, and it seems so possible." Chris's father tries to brush it off. "But that was a long time ago. I was young and stupid. It was different." But Joel presses him. "But you did it. You made the choice. A wife and a 7-year-old, and you just took off." At its core, this is a story about the long shadow abandonment casts. Not just on the person who's left, but on everyone in that orbit. Chris's father leaving when he was 7 sets the stage for a lifetime of emotional wounds, shaping Chris's self-worth and ultimately the way Joel processes his own dissatisfaction. Joel's temptation to walk away mirrors the generational echo of abandonment. The idea that leaving is somehow possible because someone modeled it beforehand. Looking down, Chris's father admits, "Yeah, I took off. Right. You want to know where I took off to? You want to hear where possible gets you?" And then a flashback begins. "I went and lived in the woods with a bunch of wannabe flower children. Artists and musicians and self-described visionaries. Sure, it sounds great, but it's not the real." The scene then cuts back to the present, with Joel outside of the bar vomiting into a trash can. And the red narration box pops up again. This is not okay. Joel then asks Chris's father, "You left to live in a commune?" They sit down on the curb, and Chris's father continues, "They called it free love. But any love worth its salt costs you. Being a dad seemed like a trap. I'd come home from a shift and Chris would be screaming. Then he started with the music. At 6, the kid had more talent in his pinky than I'd had my entire life." He then admits, I assumed, taking care of Chris and his mom meant that all my big ideas had to be put on hold. That me, the individual, had been erased by him. So I bailed. But it's the other stuff that is a trap. The world out there. It's a bunch of locked doors. Being a dad was my way out. And I blew it." And the seduction of escape is one of the most insidious and emotionally resonant themes in this comic, because it threads through multiple characters' choices across multiple generations. Chris's father embodies it first. When he leaves his family, he frames it as chasing freedom, a romanticized notion of starting over, unburdened by responsibility. But when we hear him later in the issue, it's clear that what seemed like liberation was hollow. He traded the hard, messy work of staying for a kind of loneliness and regret that can't be undone. His escape didn't lead to joy. It only created new prisons for him later in life. And that's why Joel flirts with the same idea. Feeling stagnant and feeling trapped, he imagines just walking away. It's not necessarily that he doesn't love the people in his life. It's that the monotony and the weight of his responsibilities make leaving feel like an attractive option. The fantasy of escape whispers promises of renewal, of excitement, and of freedom from guilt. But the story underlines a harsh truth. Leaving doesn't erase your problems. It just leaves them for others to carry, and often leaves you with more to bear later, as Chris's dad alluded to earlier. Even for Chris, that choice translated into abandonment and a lifetime of feeling unwanted. That's the seed that shapes Chris's emotional core. The belief that people you love will eventually choose to leave rather than stay with you. And the irony is that Chris grows up carrying this trauma. Then he delivers a gut punch. You just presided over my son's funeral. You had to tell his story, because I was too much of a coward to know it myself. And then extending his hand, he warns, don't do it, Joel. Don't bail. I can't say it more plainly than that. As we turn the page, we see the two riding in a car together, and Chris's father laments. He was sick and I never knew. My own son. And Joel offers, me neither. We'd lost touch. But Chris's father breaks down. If I could only just hug him to tell him it's okay. I never got to hug my boy. The narration, is this hell, interrupts the scene yet again. But Joel asks, what if? What if you could hug him one last time? And then he smiles. The story then shifts to a horrific, brief, and unpleasant interlude. And the red narration boxes are revealed to be Chris's thoughts in the afterlife, enduring bizarre torments, spiders crawling all over his naked body, ice cream man skeletons tickling him while he's strapped to a wheel, anthropomorphic dogs performing an autopsy on his body, musicians blasting clarinets in his face, and alien machinery inflating his body with who knows what. Why does it keep changing, he asks. And then he's chained to a wall as he wonders, is this hell? Am I in hell? At this point, I think it's pretty clear that Chris was not sick physically, but emotionally. And this reframes the story up to this point. In life, Chris doesn't literally walk away the way his father did, but he does find himself emotionally withdrawing, especially from Joel. The two go years without speaking, and while we don't get a direct cause for that rift, that silence functions as its own type of escape, avoiding a difficult or messy relationship rather than facing it. A familiar voice answers, everywhere is hell, Chris. And then Rick the ice cream man steps out from the shadows. You're in the sweet place, where all the sick little boys and girls come to rot their teeth. From the darkness emerges a grotesque, multi-faced melting form, perhaps Rick's true body. He taunts Chris's love of music with a cruel song, replaying over and over and over again the moment his father left, each time with more venomous words until the father melts into Rick's horrific form. Goodbye, Chrissy. This is your fault. You're going to be alone forever, champ. Do you like my song, Chris? Do you want to hear it for 1,000 years? We end the scene with Chris as a young boy with tears falling from his eyes. And after taking his own life, Chris's escape from life is no escape at all. Instead of peace, he's trapped in his own personal hell, orchestrated by Rick, one that forces him to relive the very moment his father left him, again and again and again. In a way, Rick weaponizes Chris's trauma to show that escape is just an illusion. The thing you try to get away from is often the thing you can't ever truly outrun. And here's the other side of Joel's fragile idea of Chris. But Rick chooses to focus on the negative experiences Chris had during his life in relation to his father. This fragility is amplified by Rick, who doesn't just retell Chris's life, he warps it. Rick inserts himself into Chris's narrative, literally rewriting moments to serve as tools for torment. What begins as Joel's solemn recollection of Chris's identity gets twisted into a surreal, eternal punishment that reflects Chris's deepest trauma. That shift drives home a chilling truth. In the wrong hands, a person's story can be stolen, altered, and weaponized. Rick's version is invasive, but it sticks like a scar. The tension between these two versions of Chris highlights how stories are living things, and how easily they can be lost, distorted, or replaced altogether. The idea that death and the afterlife are subjective is central to how Chris's story plays out, and it's one of the more unsettling thematic threads in the series. Chris doesn't enter a neutral or universal version of the afterlife. There's no pearly gates, no quiet void, and no cosmic justice system. Instead, what he experiences is deeply personal, tailored to his most painful memory, the day his father walked out on him when he was 7. Rick doesn't simply place Chris in his hell. He shapes hell out of Chris's own life, trapping him in an endless loop of abandonment and humiliation. This suggests a universe where the afterlife isn't fixed, but rather molded from the psyche of the dead. A place where your unresolved wounds, regrets, and fears dictate what comes next. In Chris's case, his hell is not fire and brimstone, but a surreal theatrical replay of his deepest hurt. It's less about moral judgment and more about emotional torment, as if the worst thing you could carry in life becomes your eternal reality. Back in the physical world, Joel and Chris's father open his casket at night. He looks so peaceful, like he made it to the good place, unaware of Rick's torture of his son. Lifting Chris's body, he cradles him. "I'm sorry, Chrissy. I got it all twisted up. It's okay, I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here." Chris's dad hugging him one last time carries a heavy emotional and thematic weight. Throughout this issue, we see that Chris's father abandoned his family, leaving unresolved guilt and a fractured relationship with his son. The hug is his attempt to bridge that gap, even if it's too late to truly repair the past. Thematically, it underscores the fragile nature of our own relationships. We often realize the value of loved ones only after they're gone, and the act of holding Chris becomes a ritual of acknowledgement, an attempt to make amends. It also contrasts sharply with Rick's cruel manipulation of Chris in his afterlife. While Rick exploits Chris and twists his posthumous experience, his father's embrace is genuinely human and restorative, highlighting the difference between authentic connection and the perverse control Rick represents. The hug is a powerful moment of human empathy and sorrow, reminding us of the consequences of absence, neglect, and the bittersweet nature of closure. This is a scene that was hard for me to read, especially because I can relate specifically to Chris's dad's actions in this scene. The next day, we see Rick serving ice cream to a little girl. "You don't want to drop it, and don't forget, sweetheart, the vultures are coming to eat your brains." Then a man in black approaches. "Almighty, you're still at this shit?" It's Caleb, someone who clearly knows and isn't afraid of Rick. "I know what you're doing to the people in this town, and I don't like it very much at all. No siree. So I guess I'll be seeing you around, pal." Rick grips his truck so hard that the metal warps. Caleb walks away whistling, and the mystery deepens. Is Caleb an enemy powerful enough to challenge Rick, or perhaps even his opposite? I guess we'll find out in future issues. Now, Rick and Caleb, in my opinion, function almost like two sides of the same cosmic coin. One embodying corruption and manipulation, and the other compassion and preservation. Rick is an agent of chaos, but not in the flashy, cartoonish sense. He's precise and he's intimate in how he inflicts harm. He doesn't just hurt people, he curates their suffering. Thematically, Rick represents the universe's cruel indifference, Or maybe it's cruelty with intent. He shows how personal narratives can be twisted into weapons, and how what you fear most can become your prison if left unresolved. Now, Caleb, in contrast, is an interloper in Rick's plans, not a savior in the traditional sense, but a figure who tries to interrupt the cycle. While Rick thrives on digging deeper into people's emotional scars, Caleb offers brief moments of reprieve, or at least the possibility of another path. Caleb's presence suggests that even in a world built on pain, there's still room for grace, empathy, and the refusal to let someone's worst moment define their entire eternity. Together, Rick and Caleb create a moral tension that I hope is explored further in this series. It's not quite good versus evil in a biblical sense, but cruelty versus compassion, maybe despair versus hope, entrapment versus escape. That balance or imbalance between them reinforces the series' bleak suggestion that kindness exists, but it's fragile, and cruelty often has a louder voice. All right, that wraps up our look at Ice Cream Man issue number 4, a dark and thought-provoking issue that dives deep into grief, memory, and the unsettling power of Rick's presence. If you enjoyed this review and want to see more deep dives into horror comics, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.